Hello, my name is Shane Mitchell, and you've reached HealthyMenTalk. In the studio today, we have Mr. Ken. Say hello, Ken.
Hello, Shane.
I'm playing golf tomorrow.
You know why I haven't played?
Knee, innit?
Hey?
Is it
No,
your
I
knee?
fell over.
Oh, yeah, I think Aaron said something about you falling over.
Yeah, I
What
fell
did you
over.
do?
I slipped on a grassy verge, smacked me chest on a concrete curb, right? And I think I've cracked. 'Cause you don't get it checked, do you?
Jesus
Cracked a
Christ.
couple of ribs.
Was you on the...
No, it was at work. I couldn't sleep for a few nights because you just can't move in bed.
Yeah.
You know, Healthy Men's Talk, then, right?
Yeah.
For a start. That's not just you, is it?
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah.
You started up Healthy Men's
Yeah.
Talk.
I started at HealthyMenTalk.
Right.
I started it a few years back because my friend's brother took his own life, and I wanted to raise a bit of money for the little girl that was left behind.
I remember all that, but I didn't know if it had already started and you had just sort of like was helping, or whether it was your
me.
Bag, yeah.
It's all me. At the moment, it's all me. I have a few people I sort of get advice from and what they do and stuff. Like my sister-in-law, she's got her own YouTube channel, but she does like a travel blog.
Right.
So I've been picking her brains on tags and thumbnails, all these things. I ain't got a clue.
Any of that.
I ain't got a clue, mate.
I ain't got a
clue my best asset is this. Yeah. But at the moment, it's just me, and I'm relying on people coming in. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, Ken, I've got some. Thank you for coming in today. I know you're quite busy.
You're welcome, mate.
I've got a few questions for you. Answer them the best you can. And if there's something that you don't want to answer, shake your head and we'll move on.
Okay.
All right?
Absolutely fine.
First question I want to ask, and don't take offense. As an older man, what does mental health...
offense to that.
I flopped it already. Ken, come back. As an older man, what does mental health mean to you?
It's all interconnected, you know?
Yeah.
If you haven't got your mental health right, then you're physically not well either, in my book.
Yeah.
The two run hand in hand. So you've got to look after your mental health as well as your physical health.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at me, you can't see me, but I'm in reasonable shape for an older man.
You went bad for someone who's not yet.
You'd like to think that my mental health is in a similar position. So, that's how I feel.
Would you say vice versa as well? So, if you're fit and healthy, body, fit and healthy.
I think the two run hand in hand. So to a large extent, it's not going to be the same entirely for everybody. But if you're not physically well, then that's gonna surely take an effect on your mental health. And if you're not mentally well, it's hard to look after your physical health because it affects your physical health.
Yeah.
You could go to the gym all day long. People always say that is good for your mental health. And you see how the two are interconnected. It's really important that you look after both assets. That's what I'm saying. You look after your mental health and your physical health, because they're intertwined, I think.
Intertwined, yeah. Especially if you go to the gym and you see a lot of people in there, and you look at them and you think, I wonder if they're here for their mental health. Like going for a walk, isn't it? I'm going to go for a walk, clear my mind.
I don't go to the gym, but I do. I know exactly what you're saying, right? I know a lot of people that go to the gym as part of their looking after their mental health, where they've struggled. So I can imagine that if you went to the gym, I'm not a gym person, but I would look at people and think, I wonder if they're struggling mentally.
Yeah, because you can't tell.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things with mental health.
Yeah, you can't tell.
Let's just say, when you said about tying mental health with physical health. If someone is on crutches, there must be something wrong. There's no signals of mental health. You can't just look at, and you're not going to go up to someone in the street and go, "You're right." You're just not. People don't, because that's just weird.
Yeah. So I agree with you. But we should. Actually, we should. You've always done it. You've always done it to me.
I always ask.
And I will always ask people, are they okay? Especially if they don't look quite right. And that's not always a sign of someone struggling. But if they not look quite right, you've only got to ask a question, haven't you?
Yeah.
You all right, mate?
Yeah.
Got anything? Got any problems that you want to?
I think you pick up cues, though, don't you? When you have a friendship or relationship with someone, when they're down because they're quiet or their pattern is shit.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just some sort of subtle change in them that's you just want to make sure they're okay.
Yeah. So that being said, obviously, like you said, you don't go to the gym. So what do you do to deal with your stress?
Try not to get stressed, right? I'm a firm believer in the deep breaths, have a little reflection on what the problem is, because usually the problem's next to nothing.
Yeah.
But you can make it into a bigger problem if you think too much about it.
Overthinking.
So, and I've probably been like this since I was very young. I'm a very simple person. Some people would just say I'm simple, but I don't dwell or think about anything deeply, right? You know,
Do you think that's natural, or do you choose not to?
I'm not sure. Do you know what? I'm not sure whether I've somewhere along the line I've chosen to do that, or whether that's just me. I think a lot of it is just me, because I think I've been like that pretty much all my life.
Yeah. Where did that come from then? What was like? Was your dad the same way? Did he push that onto you, and you? Because that to me seems like something you would learn from the peers around you. Like, oh, you know, this is.
I don't know. I think probably, again, you say it as an older person, like life was a lot simpler years ago.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of the problems why people struggle today, right? There was no social media.
Yeah.
There was no mobile phones. You know, there was 2, 3 channels on the TV. You know, you didn't have an awful lot of choice. You know, you didn't have a lot of money. All you thought about was eating. You know, fashion was limited because there wasn't much money that went around.
Yeah.
So you had a very, very much more simpler life.
Yeah,
you know? You went to the park and you played football or cricket, or, you know, went to the woods. You know, you didn't have.
What was you doing at the woods, Ken?
You didn't just sit there and have to compare yourself to everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. I've come from that era, and consequently, that simple life I've just taken with me. There's no point in thinking too much about things, because it's going to stress you out.
Yeah. I think a lot of the younger generation can learn from that sort of mentality. It's very difficult because when you just go knock on your mate's house, you know, you didn't bring them up, or you went, mate, they weren't there. You would ride around in the neighborhood and try and find where everyone is.
Of course you would.
You know, and if you had a bit of an issue at school, or you know, a bit of bullying, you'd go home and you wouldn't see it till the next day. But there's no escape for the younger generation.
That's very true.
You know, so I totally get what you say, and I think a lot of the younger generation can learn. I think we can learn from each other. I say we. I'm in the older generation, but I think the younger and older generation can still learn.
I do feel sorry for the younger generation. I say the younger generation because that does come into my generation as well. I'm not a great social media person because I wasn't brought up on it, and I choose not to be. That's not to say I don't do a little bit, but it's very minor. But even people my age, a lot of people get addicted to the social media side of things. It's a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
You know, it is. You know, you look at everybody's perfect lives, and you know, everybody's having their teeth done, aren't they? Everybody's having an hair transplant. You know, I've got nowhere. I've got my original teeth, luckily. Right? You don't need a hair transplant. You don't need new teeth. You might actually, if your teeth are wrong, but you don't need to have perfect white teeth. You just need to be yourself. You know, you don't need to think too deeply about life, because life's simple. We're born into this planet, right, as an animal. We're an animal, right? But survival is about eating, a roof over your head, warmth, right, and producing more babies for the next generation, right?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. That's what animals do.
Yeah.
Everything in the middle is superfluous, I think is the word to that.
I'll take one for it.
Yeah. It doesn't actually really matter.
Do you know what? That's a really good point.
Clothes that you wear doesn't matter as long as they keep you warm.
Yeah.
You've got to get older to realise that.
Yeah.
In some respects as well.
All the energy you waste on trying to be popular, trying to show off. Like you said, everyone lives their perfect life on social media. No one posts on there like, oh, I'm struggling with money. I'm struggling. Like, no one posts bad stuff. Everyone's like, look at me, I've just bought this brand new car. No, you aren't. It's on finance.
Yeah.
Look at me, I just bought this house. No, you don't. You rent it.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with that. But what are you trying to make out your? Do you know what I mean?
If you've got $1 million house, or if you rent a house, you've still got a house.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. The house is we're talking about like warmth, a roof over your head, you know, and food on the table.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Take watches, for example. You look at certain people, they'll have £100,000, £1 million watches.
Yeah.
it still tells the time the same as my £10.
Absolutely.
It is this.
And it's
You with me?
the old saying about cars, isn't it? You
Gets you to A
your
to B.
McLaren F1 and your Fiat 500 get from A to B.
Yeah.
One gets there a little bit slower than the other one.
Yeah.
But you can go
But you still get there.
anywhere. You still get there.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't matter. And if you've got loads of money, great. I would never begrudge anybody having a nice car and a big house. And if they've been fortunate enough to earn that sort of money and whatever they do, that's great. But they still all end up in the same place.
There's a lot of pressure on people to
absolutely,
to live beyond their means. Now,
Yes.
was there anything like that when you were young?
When I was growing up, you very much, in my family, and no other families wouldn't be any different. You live within your means.
Yeah.
Right. If you were 30 quid a week, which was a lot of money back in the mid 70s,
Yeah.
you lived to that 30 quid. Right. But it was a bit different. It was mainly cash back in the day. So you had £30 worth of cash, and when you
Physically could see it.
you didn't have a credit card
Yeah.
to go and buy
Right money.
a new fridge with. If your fridge broke down, you would have to save up to buy a new fridge.
Yeah.
You didn't just I'll get a new fridge and we'll pay for that later. That didn't happen.
Now, I think credit is, in the right way, definitely is godsend for a lot of people. But I also think credit can be abused quite easily, and banks especially, they have a responsibility to.
Yeah, and all that puts pressure on your life as well.
Yeah.
If you borrow money, that puts pressure on your life.
Yeah.
And if you're sensible and you look at your income, you don't have to borrow money.
Yeah.
Right. It's a very rare occasion you might need to for some unknown reason.
Yeah.
But generally, live within your means, whether it's £100 jumper or a £10 jumper from Primark. It's still a jumper that keeps you warm.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter.
I think when you're older, you realise that. When you're younger,
yeah,
you have an image, you're trying to attract a mate, it's the peacocking thing. And I've seen some of your shirts, Mike.
And when I was younger, I would have wanted that pair of denim bell-bottom jeans because they was in at the time, right? Because my mum couldn't buy me a pair of bell-bottom jeans. I had another pair of jeans, and I tried to make them look a bit different to everybody else's.
Yeah.
Right, by putting a few bits of patches or something on it, right? And that's how you make yourself look a little bit different if you want to do that. But again, it's just a pair of jeans.
Yeah. It's a shame, isn't it? But I think you have to live it. And, you probably got plenty of old pictures of crazy hairstyles. I remember I had my hair long when I was younger.
And exactly me. They used to call me Curly Ken, believe it or not. I was called Curly Ken when I was younger.
Well, I like that.
And now,
Well, same, mate.
You get curly hair when you're young, generally it falls out by your mid-30s, and that's what happened to me.
That's what happened to me,
similar to you.
Similar to me, yeah. It's a lifestyle choice, I
And again, people worry. It's a worry to people.
Yeah,
losing it, right?
It's that image again.
I didn't like it because I used to like my long curly, and if I had hair now, it would be long and curly, right?
Yeah,
100% it would be. I would never have it short, but I ain't got any left. And when it started falling out, you think, that's it then. Yeah. Let's just get on with life without hair, innit?
But you were lucky. I mean, how long have you been with your wife? Quite a while, isn't
it? Yeah, 33 years, I think.
33 years. So, you obviously had wife behind you, and not that you obviously didn't take care of yourself, but you had your love. So, I think a lot of men middle-aged who go through breakups, then they're like, I've got to attract a mate again, or similar to women as well, so I get it to a certain extent. But with all that said, with the way you are, because you've got sons, how did you see them grow? Did they grow up very similar to the way your mentality was, or could you see the stresses the struggles they had growing up? How did you combat that?
Well, I've been fortunate with my two boys, and I think that they're a chip off the old block in terms of the fact that they've, straight from school, they didn't go to university, chose not to. The younger one is a tradesman. The older one chose not to go, but they've both grafted all their lives. From school into work, and they've grafted, and that's the foundation that's given them. Now they're into their mid-30s, right? They've been able to get onto the housing ladder reasonably early. They're both now married with 2 children each. So they're settled, right? They're financially okay, right? Still got mortgages to pay for a long time.
Yeah.
But,
That's normal.
They've all, yeah, that's normal. You know, no different to me, but they've always grafted. And if you graft, you shouldn't have any financial worries,
Yeah.
right? So stresses and strains, they really haven't had those stresses and strains. You know, they've just gotten on with life. You know, I've not had any problems with the children whatsoever.
Yeah.
Maybe they got those genes from me. Maybe, you know, I'd certainly say the younger one doesn't think too much about life, you know, and
Just gets on with it,
just
lives each day.
gets on with things. The older ones is much in a similar vein. He's probably got a much more stressful job, but you know, he copes with it fine because he grasps at it, you know,
Yeah.
puts the hours in and does all right out of it, really.
No, I think as children, we obviously look, it's that, they call it generational trauma. So they take on the trauma of their parents. And I think if you've got a good core and good values and principles, you're a bit of an head start.
Yeah,
And obviously,
yeah.
by the signs of it, you've obviously taught your boys, because that's one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing, is financial issues, like for men especially.
Yeah,
And,
you know, you
that's what
see it.
drives them crazy. And
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, I fail to see how someone's going to become financially independent if they don't graft. Right? I just think that's very important. You read about it a lot at the moment with the young generation, and that's after you, Shane. It's the next generation down. They don't particularly want to work, right? They just feel like everything should be given to them. It's no God-given right. You know, you have to earn, you know, and you have to pay your way in life to become an independent, financially independent person.
I think it's a lot different for the younger generation. I remember when I was at school, I think maybe only two of my friends went to university.
Yeah, yeah.
And I always had it in my head was when I was younger, only the real smart kids went to uni and the rest just went into, construction or warehouses.
Yeah,
Like, do you know what I mean? Like I wasn't smart at school. Like I was, but I didn't apply myself.
Yeah.
I already knew that I was going to go into roofing. So that was my focus.
Yeah.
The issue I find with a lot of the young, they're smart as hell now. There's so much things on the internet, so much tools they can use.
Yeah, absolutely.
But where they might have 10 people applying for a job, now there's 1,000 people applying for that job. So
there's too many smart people for the amount of smart jobs.
Yeah,
right. And
exactly that.
You know, and somewhere along the line, these smart people have got to become, you know, up, on the top of my head, bus drivers and whatever it might be. There's
those jobs
there where we need people, as a country, as an economy, we need people to have bus drivers. We need so many nurses. We need so many, electricians or roofers or whatever it might be. And unfortunately, some of them very smart people need to take some of those jobs.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, they'll earn just as good money as they would in a so-called smart job.
I totally agree with that. Someone I was talking to a while ago said the same thing.
Being a tradesman.
There's nothing wrong with it at all. But the point you just said then, I think is a really good point. Yes, all the kids nowadays, they're coming out of school really smart. That's great. But like you said, there's not enough smart jobs for these smart people.
Yeah.
So eventually they're going to have to go, right, do you know what? I ain't going to get that job that I need because there's other people, unless they're like plus A, or I think it's like level 9s or whatever now.
Yeah, or just extremely lucky in that interview.
Or extremely lucky in the interview. So, they have to get a job. And I think a lot of them are holding out for that better job.
Yeah.
It might not come.
Yeah, it might not ever come. And that's the thing.
It might not ever come.
You still got to earn money.
Still got to earn the peas.
You still got to have that roof over your head. You still got to clothe yourself. You still got to feed yourself. Those are the three basics in life, in my eyes, that you just got to take care of.
That's why you probably heard it most a really good common phrase now, like the bank of mum and dad.
Yeah.
Everyone's staying at home until they're in their 30s, because they can't afford to move back.
No, it is a different, that financially, that's totally different to when I was younger, which was, it was cheaper to live. The cost of living is, to what you earn now, is, much higher.
Yeah.
But having said that, you didn't have a phone contract to pay for. There was no Sky TV.
Okay.
You didn't have Sky TV to pay for. You didn't have to do all these things that people want and assume that that everybody's entitled to, they weren't there.
Yeah.
So your outgoings weren't.
Yeah.
That's
Gas, electric, rent.
And really, they're
Right.
all pretty much unnecessary stuff, aren't they?
Yeah.
Necessary stuff is food, home,
Yeah. And that £10 jumper.
warmth. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's brilliant. Ken, do you know what? I asked this question to someone else and they gave a really good answer. Can you remember a time when you were at your lowest and who or what dragged you through it?
I'll be honest, I put on a personal note, I've never been low.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's fine.
There has been a time, you have your, I went from being young, free and single to being married with 2 children inside 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. So it was a big change for me.
Yeah. Quick turnaround.
Right? I'm just starting up on my career path. Just bought my first house, and I was working very long hours. Didn't see the kids an awful lot when they were very young. I wouldn't say it was low, but I would say if there was a period of time where I thought there's a lot on me, right, it would have been then.
Yeah.
That's how. No, I don't think that's any different for anybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of pressure to provide.
Yeah. How did I get past that? It's going back so many years. I kept myself busy, right? I was busy at work, but I kept myself busy either with my family or, I was play football, so that come the weekend, but I'd take the kids and the wife with me. So we went to football. I played, had a couple of beers. We were a family together.
Yeah.
But we did a lot of things together, and we kept busy. And I think keeping busy kept my head from going down.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So although it was probably the time where I had the most on me in terms
those
of
early years,
you call it stress, whatever it might have been, I got through that by just not having keeping busy doesn't give you time to dwell on things.
Yeah. I think
dwelling on things is sometimes,
because you create these problems in your
head. You create a problem for yourself. Yeah, absolutely.
How did you balance sort of your work life at that time? As a young family,
I was shocking at balancing my work life. I'd be up at 5, and I'd be home at 7. And when I got home, I was shattered.
Yeah.
I'd have a bath and have some tea and fall asleep in the chair.
Yeah.
The kids would be in bed. So I didn't see them. So I struggled with work-life balance for quite a long time, I'd say. Fortunately, the kids weren't too badly behaved when they were young. The wife had a family network around her that helped out. So, we didn't have too much of a problem in that respect. But it took me a long time in my life to get work-life
balanced.
Yeah, balanced. Yeah. I think because you just, I've always been, you've got to graft.
Yeah.
And I still think that's part of my nature now.
Yeah.
I like to graft. And one day, my problem might come when I stop.
Yeah.
Because bang,
I don't think you'll ever stop.
Finished, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't think you'll ever stop.
Who knows?
You love life. You just keep going.
Yeah. I like interacting with people.
With those early years, with the balance, what sacrifices did you make looking back that you regret now? Like
I'd love to have seen the kids more when they were younger.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to say I regretted it, right? Because it put me on my way to I've staged now in my life. I'm still working. I don't have to work. I'm in a good spot in that respect. But I worked very hard when I was very young. And I'd like to have seen the kids more than I did. There'd be 2 or 3 days where I got up before they got up, or got home before they, after they got to bed. So I only really, saw them the occasional evening and at the weekends. But I made sure I made up for it at the weekend.
Yeah.
It's just, your kids are everything to you, aren't they?
Yeah.
You've got children, and that's what you live for, isn't it?
You do.
Now I live for my grandchildren. So
now you live for grandchildren.
Now I see my grandchildren an awful lot more than I saw my kids.
I always say grandkids are you you enjoy your grandkids, you raise your kids.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And they're like little extensions. They're another chance for you to spend the time that you never got to spend with children. I don't think truly understand that.
I actually love spending time with my own children now.
Yeah.
Even though they're, been adults.
You say it like you did like.
I do, because, I didn't do that when they were very young.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah.
So it's nice to do it more than I would have done if I'd have seen them a lot when they were younger. I don't know.
Yeah.
They've only got to phone me up and I'm there.
Yeah. But I think they understand that. Everyone knows about a man's sacrifice, what they do, but no one sees it from the father's point of view. They miss out on all the days, the birthday parties, because they got to work. They've got to provide for the family. Someone's got to pay the bills.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not always just men. That's obviously women as well.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
A lot of the time, especially early days, where the man was the main breadwinner.
Yeah. It was. Yeah, my wife didn't. She did work before the children, but she gave up work when the children were very young.
Yeah.
And then went back to work sort of like when they were 5 or 6 or something like that.
Yeah. So had to raise the children.
Raise the children, and I went to work to put the bunts on the table. Regret's probably the wrong word for it, but I would like to have seen them more when they were younger. Yeah, very much so. So now I enjoy their company now.
Yeah.
When I see them.
Yeah.
And I'll phone them up and ask how they are, and what you're doing this weekend. Fancy going to football or whatever it might be. Fancy a beer. It's great.
Go have a beer.
Yeah.
Ken, that's absolutely brilliant. I won't keep you for too long. When we have people come in for the interview, they leave a question, which I'll get you to answer, and then I'll get you to leave a question for the next person.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so the question we had from Rich was, do you have a motto you tell yourself, or a couple of sentences that you tell yourself to get through the day?
Don't think deeply about life.
Don't think too deeply.
Yeah, and I don't.
And you don't.
I don't. I don't worry about life. I don't think about life. We're here. Luckily the whole family's healthy, so I haven't got to worry about any of that. After that, what's there to worry about?
Yeah, deal with it when it happens.
Yeah. I can buy food. I've got a house, and I can afford to buy some clothes. It's great to have a little holiday. It's great to do, go and have a beer and all that stuff. But if you haven't got the money, it doesn't matter. You still see your children.
Yeah.
Whether you see them at the pub or you don't, you still see them. Whether you're on holiday, whether you go on holiday with them, or whether it's at their or wherever, whatever it might be. So I don't dwell or think too deeply about life, because if you think too much about what life is about, you'd struggle to find out why we're here.
Yeah.
Right?
You can lose focus on what's important, can't you?
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, we're animals. We're animals, right? We eat.
I love that.
We eat, we survive, we keep warm. They're the essentials.
We eat, reproduce.
And we produce more children. That's it.
All right, Ken, give me a question for the next person.
Right, caught me out there then.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to have to think about that for a second.
You don't think about life, but you think about this question. All right?
Yeah. It's a very, very simple question, right? But very to the point. So, are you a nice person?
Oh, I like it. Are you a nice person?
Because that's, if you're not nice, you should be, shouldn't you?
I like that. That's probably one of the most simple questions that I'll ask.
What makes you a nice person?
What makes you a nice person? I reckon just, are you a nice person? Yeah. That's very deep.
Mm-hmm.
Because then they'll be like,
yeah. You should, because everybody should be nice, isn't it? Everybody should be nice to each other. It's a much better world then, isn't it?
Yeah. And I see it all the time on social media. It's like people tagging in. It's like, you never know what people are going through.
No, you don't.
So be nice.
Yeah, be nice.
Your interaction with that person on that day could make or break them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Could tip him over the edge, or, just say, hey, how are you doing today? I really love your jumper.
Yeah, you just
I really love your Healthy Men hoodie you've just brought.
just saying hello to somebody. I'm a
Oh, I know
I
you
never
are, Ken.
used to be very touchy feely, and I know you are. Shane.
You know I love a
But
cuddle.
as I've gotten older now, well, I'll go to a club on a Sunday and a quiz, right? And there's the same sort of crowd go there, but I'll make sure I say hello to everybody, and you're right, how you
Yeah.
doing? Particularly if they've had an illness or whatever it is. And I'm forever throwing my arms around everybody, giving them a cuddle.
Yeah, good.
And I wouldn't have done that years ago.
That's probably because of me, Ken.
Probably is because of you, Shane.
I've rubbed off
And I
with
just,
you, giggity.
perhaps perhaps, and I don't think about it, but perhaps they might go away and think, oh, I feel good because I've had a bit of human contact. And
Who cuddles you?
my wife don't cuddle me often, does they?
No, but do you know what I'm saying? Like, as a
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
where the only sort
You
of
cuddle me.
physical touch.
You cuddle me all the time.
I love a cuddle.
Yeah.
But that's my point.
Yeah.
Most men, they only get their physical touch, right, from their wives.
Yeah.
Or partners, boyfriends, whatever, right? But from their partners.
Mm.
They don't get it from other men. They don't. It's a handshake.
It is a handshake. I'm lucky enough. I don't say I've got lots of close friends, but I've got lots of people I know that I would class as, I'm friends with them.
Yeah.
On a.
You'd go to their parties if they're
Go
at
to
the
their
parties.
parties.
But you're not
say
donating
hello,
the kidney, are
we'll
you?
meet at the club. I might not see them all the other time, and quite a few of those are cuddly type people. Ken, how you doing? Arms around them.
Especially when you've had a few beers.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I love you, mate.
and I think that's an important part of life.
Yeah, it is.
Physical contact.
I've always been like that.
Yeah.
Like you're asking my friends, I'm a cuddler.
And that's part of being nice. Part of being nice is just not, slagging people off and just being polite and asking how people are. But you put your arms around somebody, right? And it kind of means a little bit more, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In my eyes.
It's a truer way of, for me anyway, saying like, I care about you. How are you?
Mm. Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, they'll say, how are you? And you'll go, oh, I'm all right. Oh, nice one. See you later.
Yeah.
Whereas, are you sure? You sure you're right?
It's funny, really, because sometimes you put your arms around another man, right, that's not used to that, and you get quite a different reaction then, don't you? And
well, my brother-in-law's the same. He's hate cuddles and like that, and I just grab him.
Yeah.
Just rub his head.
Yeah.
Give him a little cuddle. Like,
yeah.
He's, oh, get on now. He's like, no, he'll give me a cuddle.
Yeah.
Because that, again, that's a generational thing.
And and you never know, right? That physical contact with that person that's not used to it, they might feel, well, that's quite a nice thing, right? I will try that with other people.
Yeah.
Right? And it might just
pave it forward.
Catch on, mightn't it?
Everyone's cuddling.
Yeah, all this cuddling. Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Ken, really appreciate you coming in today, mate. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. My name's Shane Mitchell.
Thank you, Shane.
And Mr. Big Ken.
Yeah.
In the studio today. And like and subscribe. And I'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah. Bye-bye.